What's going on, guys? This is Ryan with Outpost, and it looks like games journalists are already freaking out about Far Cry 6, and they are pissed at Ubisoft. Now, if you want to be upset with Ubisoft, there are plenty of valid reasons, whether it's because they disappointed you with the game, or maybe you just don't like what's going on in the upper echelons of their organization right now. But what these people are talking about, shocker, is identity politics. Let's take a look at a couple of the articles that have come out in recent days. This is actually the second one we'll get into. People are upset that Giancarlo Esposito has been cast to play a Latino person. It's not like we've ever seen that before. Breaking Bad. But let's get to this first. Portrayals of Latinx characters in 2020 video games already have me tired. And before we even get into this, let's just... Latinx. I never saw this word until the past couple years. I don't know exactly what it has to do with. I don't know if it's because, well, now we have more than two genders, so you can't have Latino and Latina, or maybe it has something to do with Latino encompasses all genders. By all genders, I mean male and female, but Latino is too patriarchal, so now we have to have Latinx to describe all Latin people. Evidently, I don't know. It's insane. Far Cry 6 announcement has only increased my wariness. Earlier today, the first details of Far Cry 6 were leaked on PlayStation Hong Kong store, and I immediately became tired. I don't like jumping the gun with my assumptions about video games enough to write articles about them before they're released. Well, that's obviously not true because you just wrote this one. This was before the trailer was even released. This article was written just when we had leaked screenshots of the description of the game. This is especially true these days, considering how little marketing can tell us about the products that come out of an already secretive industry. After all, The Last of Us Part 2, the game with possibly the most deceptive and off-putting marketing I've seen, has become my favorite game of all time. So just make sure that is known to everyone. The Last of Us 2 is this author's, Natalie Flores, that's her favorite game of all time. So just be informed about that. However, a game in a series like Far Cry, which is notorious for controversy in regards to its politics, especially racial, taking place in a Latinx setting is the last thing I want in 2020. Let's get into that a little bit. For some reason, Far Cry has always been something that has been highly criticized by so many games journalists. For me, I am a fan of the Far Cry series. I can't say I'm a hardcore fan or anything, but I do play most of the mainline titles. I've played 3, I've played 4, I've played 5 in recent years. And I think they're unique because they all take place in a different setting. Now, Far Cry 2 was in Africa. Far Cry 3 was on Pacific Islands. Far Cry 4 was based in Asia, and then Far Cry 5 was actually based in Montana, or what's supposed to be Montana, in America. And so they all have different ways of interacting and different cultural things, which I think is pretty cool. But that's, some people get really upset about that. Far Cry 3's racism and other reasons people aren't picking up some of this year's games. Of course, people complaining that you play a white character in Far Cry 3 going to a Pacific island, some kind of white savior trope. Now, if you listen to an interview with the person who directed this game, you realize that that's what they were going for, because you get there, that's from this person's point of view, they think they're going to be able to do all these things. In reality, they are in for a world of pain. That bubble is popped. That's kind of the point of that story. Another person being upset about the racial stereotypes in Far Cry 3. On Far Cry 4 and Respect, someone was really upset at the way they handled all of the cultural things in Far Cry 4. Not a surprise. And then, of course, Far Cry 5, the one where people were upset that Far Cry 5 did not take some kind of hard stance on white supremacy or Donald Trump or fascism or all of these things. Far Cry 5's story looks to be a morally dubious mess. Far Cry 5 ignores both Montana's real history of fascism and its victims. The history of violence buried deep in Far Cry 5's landscape. For me, going into Far Cry 5, knowing that it was going to be about a cult in rural Montana, I was worried that the game was going to get political. That's what I was worried about. That's what most gamers are worried about, that they're going to bring modern day politics into these games. But I think they did a pretty good job of not doing that. It's one of the reasons that I enjoyed Far Cry 5. I didn't necessarily enjoy some of the story directions, and especially the ending. But overall, I enjoyed playing it because they kind of kept a lot of politics out of it. And then, of course, you've got the outliers. Wait, why are there so many black people in Far Cry 5? Saying that there's too many black people and not enough Native Americans in Far Cry 5. So it's always, for some reason, Far Cry is a target for these people. Far Cry 6 has already given enough information for me to be concerned, especially when it's analyzed in the context of a space that continues to visibly fumble with Latinx representation. The English version reads this: "Welcome to Yara, a tropical paradise frozen in time. As the director of Yara, Anton Castillo is intent on restoring his nation back to its former glory by any means, with his son Diego following in his bloody footsteps. Their ruthless oppression has ignited a revolution. You'll be playing as Danny Rojas, a local Yaran who becomes a guerrilla fighter to liberate the nation. You'll fight off the troops, all of that stuff. It's the same kind of story that you typically have in Far Cry. You are kind of a lone person who is part of this resistance against a certain force that is in play in that area. That's a trope of Far Cry, but it's kind of what Far Cry is. Finally, among objects like weapons and vehicles, it's stated you'll be able to employ the Amigos, the new fangs for hire to burn the tyrannical regime to the ground. None of this strikes me as too inherently egregious, aside from naming the fangs for hire the Amigos and pairing them alongside objects to be employed. They're guns for hire. That's what they are. And they're calling them Amigos because it's taking place in a Latin city. However, I'm not inclined to give Ubisoft the benefit of the doubt. As a result of the overwhelming amount of allegations about harassment and misconduct at the company's various studios, the CEO is only now deciding to address the fact that Ubisoft's all-white male editorial department, which oversees creative decisions, should be transformed. It's interesting that you bring up the all-white male editorial department. I wonder if you brought up, the person who's in charge of this game, who is Navid Kavari, the narrative director of Far Cry 5. Now, I don't want to assume, maybe it's just the shade of the picture. He doesn't look like a white male to me. I don't really know his heritage, but it doesn't seem to be a white male. I could be very wrong, though. Feel free to correct me, whoever the hell wrote this article. You didn't mention him, did you? No matter how much change and positive impact the employees at Ubisoft at the bottom push for franchises in Far Cry and Watch Dogs, their efforts are easily squandered in the face of embarrassing leadership composition that should have been addressed long before a wave of damning allegations, right? So this person is just really upset at the way that Far Cry in general has treated different racial things. So they think that that is going to happen again. Now they go into several examples in here about how they didn't like the way the Hispanic character in Cyberpunk was portrayed. And not only Cyberpunk, but also Apex Legends, how it's portrayed there, right? Basically all of their complaints about how Latin characters are represented. That's what this article is about. But then this one is just hilarious and really tells you where we are right now, 2020. Far Cry 6 reveal gives us another reason to cancel Ubisoft. Faces criticism after casting a non-Latino actor to play a Latino role in the titular protagonist of its new game Far Cry 6. After a huge leak confirmed that Far Cry 6 will be released, Ubisoft officially announced the game at its first Ubisoft Fast Forward event, and it was one of its big announcements. Far Cry 6 set in fictional Cuba-inspired location named Yara, where a dictator named Anton Castillo rules with an iron fist. While the trailer could have been something powerful, it's been marred by criticism over the casting of Giancarlo Esposito. Castillo is undoubtedly meant to be a Latino or Afro-Latino character, but Esposito is not a Latino actor. It's strange that you would assume that he's meant to be a Latino or Afro-Latino character. Where did you say that? Did you just go off his last name, Castillo, in the same way that people look at Giancarlo Esposito's name? It's very strange. I can't believe you assumed their origins, assumed their race. How very disgusting of you. Who wrote this? Jasmine Henry. Can't believe you, Jasmine. On his Wikipedia page, and confirmed by Esposito in interviews, the actor has an Italian and African-American heritage. He was born in Denmark. His surname is Spanish-sounding and could lead someone to assume he is Hispanic or Afro-Latino. Let me ask you a question. Why do you think Giancarlo Esposito was cast in this role as this Latino character? Do you think maybe it's because that one of the most well-known Latino villains that we've seen in cinema over the last couple decades has been his character from Breaking Bad? He is legendary for that performance in Breaking Bad, and he did play a Latin character in that. Maybe that's why. Maybe it's because Giancarlo Esposito has a name attached to him. Maybe it's because he's an incredible actor. Maybe that is why they cast him in this role. If the way that people are going these days, the only roles you can play are exactly what your history is, then the only thing Giancarlo Esposito could ever play is an Italian and African-American person that was born in Denmark and has a Spanish-sounding last name. That's a really small amount of roles that he could fill, huh? But luckily for us, he's an actor and he can act. Thank God that was the case. That's why we get to see Giancarlo Esposito in these things. He's known for taking Latino roles. These people eat themselves alive. It is never good enough. It is never good enough. The actor's filmography could have been a reason why Ubisoft felt it was appropriate. This is inexcusable. Though, as the company did a month of on-the-ground research in Cuba, should be expected to know something easily discoverable on an actor's Wikipedia page. Maybe they just thought he was the best person for the role. Look at this person's really upset. He's not Latinx. Having him play a Cuban director or Cuban dictator in the new Far Cry game is not what anyone needs. Esposito is great, but not Latinx, and that's the point. It doesn't matter how good you are. If you are not the right color, or even if you are the right color, but you're not the right heritage, it doesn't matter. We need more Latinx reps in games. Far Cry 6, here's a dog named Chorizo. Yeah, there's a ton of people really upset about this little puppy right here, whose name is Chorizo. I don't understand why people have to get so upset about everything. And here's some screenshots from the game, guys, if you're interested in the actual game. Looks pretty, it looks pretty good. It's just screenshots. We haven't seen any gameplay. We know what Far Cry is going to be. It's not going to be a surprise what this is. It's the same thing. However, if you're a fan of the Far Cry series, you might like this. I'm interested to see what Giancarlo Esposito does as the villain in this game. I think he's going to do really well. His casting isn't the only insensitive move that Ubisoft has made. Many on social media have noted the Far Cry trailer uses a yellow filter, a common trope for games and movies set in countries outside of the West. What are you even talking about? We just looked at these screenshots. Yellow, this is a slightly yellowish filter as the sun is coming up, but this is like a blue sky. That is really pixelated for some reason. Look at this. That doesn't look like a yellow filter. This is fire. Is that a yellow filter to anyone? These people are mentally deranged. The character of Anton Castillo features heavily in the game as seen on the box art, making it unlikely that Ubisoft is going to change anything now. For a company that donated to Black Lives Matter, it is disappointing to see Ubisoft contribute to racial injustice in this way. And exactly like we said, it is never enough. There is never enough virtue signaling you can do. You can donate to whoever you want. You can put a black square. You can hashtag Black Lives Matter. It doesn't matter. Because as soon as you do one thing that these people don't agree with, you're done. Bottom line. So once again, Ubisoft is under fire simply for trying to put a great actor fill a role in their game. I don't understand it. I don't think I ever will because these people are insane. Tell me what you think about all this in the comments below. Regardless of your feelings on Ubisoft and their games, do you think that it deserves this type of criticism? Let me know. Smash a like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, share this video out there, and I will talk to you later. Thanks for watching, everyone. And a huge shout out to my patrons. I appreciate you guys so much. Want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram? Check out the description below. You'll find links to my P.O. box and my Patreon as well. And I'll talk to you guys later.